I hope I am clearly audible and visible. Good morning, Leela. Good morning. Good morning to all of you. It's actually good afternoon. It's exact 12 o'clock. So I hope you have given the paper with all your good efforts and the results will be out very soon. Good morning to all of you. Good afternoon to all of you. So today we are going to discuss our forensic aims questions. Total 11 questions were there. Last year also there were 11 questions. Every session they keep 11 questions. Straightforward. So how was the paper actually? How did you find it? Easy, moderate, or tough? What is your final opinion? How was the AIMS paper in total? Atypical, atypical drowning, atypical hanging, moderately difficult. Yes, AIMS has to be like this, either moderate to tough or tough. It cannot be easy. Easy word is not there for AIMS exam. Yes, options were very confusing. Like two options could be easily ruled out, and then there was 50-50 chances in many questions. So those who have attended my class, I think the notes were apt according to your exams. The notes must have helped you because out of 11 questions, 10 questions you could have easily marked. Leaving aside that black color Kalonji seed. Yeah, questions were made in very hurriness because of this corona roaming around. So good afternoon to all of you. And tomorrow is our PGI exam also. So my today's discussion of AIMS exams will help you in tomorrow's exam also. Okay, because we will be revising the important topics, all the 11 question topics. And this is my referral code. Those who want Unacademy Plus subscription, they can use this referral code to get a 10% discount. Okay, students have joined. Actually, there were 80 enrollments. Until now, 44 have joined. So let all the people join. Let us give one more minute and then we will start with the session. Yeah, this will be available. You can revise it again and again. It will be available in my profile section. And after the end of the session, you can download the PDF also. Okay, till then, let us discuss one very important topic which can be asked in your PGI exam. George Floyd death in US. What was the cause of death? They can ask you this in PGI exams. So the cause of death in Floyd case, which happened in US, is antemortem neck compression, because his neck was compressed with elbow of a policeman from the back. The neck was compressed, compressing the neck vessels, causing his death in about 8 to 10 minutes. Yes, asphyxia is the cause of death. And what is the mechanism? Antemortem neck compression. So remember this. It's not actually mugging. Mugging is like this. When you hold the front of neck with the bend of elbow. But the scenario was different in Floyd case. His neck was compressed from posterior aspect and lateral aspect. So it's not actually mugging, but yes, there is sure shot neck compression. And it cannot be traumatic asphyxia. Traumatic asphyxia is compression of the chest. Chest compression is traumatic asphyxia. So there the cause of death is asphyxia as a result of antemortem neck compression. Even the autopsy has been done 2 times. One of the doctors gave the finding as cause of death as some natural disease. But then the autopsy was done again and then this cause of death was found out. So good afternoon to all of you. Good afternoon. Yes, traumatic asphyxia will also present with any asphyxial death will present with cyanosis, petechia and congestion. Any asphyxial death. Be it traumatic asphyxia, it will present with congestion of internal organs, cyanosis, and then your petechial hemorrhages in eyes, lungs, heart. So remember that Floyd case. They can ask you the cause of death in Floyd case. This is their most recent story. And the story which I did autopsy was one of the cases in Delhi itself. There 17 policemen, they killed a person by mugging. Actually, one person was responsible for actual death of the person. Okay. There the scenario was clear-cut mugging, but Floyd case was not a typical mugging case. So we are good to go. There were 80 enrollments and 80 people have joined. So we are good to go. This was one of the questions. And by seeing the question, I remember whenever I teach this 164A CRPC, I teach you like this only. What all things needs to be done in rape victim examination. So let us see the question carefully. A 14-year-old girl comes to emergency with her mother. History of penovaginal penetration. So yes, this is rape offense. Penetration of penis into any of the 4 orifices. Vagina, urethra, anus or mouth is rape in India. So yes, the offense is rape. Age is given to you, 14 years. Now the patient refused to consent for medical examination. Yes, they can. What will you do as a doctor for your safety? First thing to be done is you counsel that sister, please agree for the consent. It is for your benefit. But even then she is not agreeing. Then what you should do? You should take a informed refusal. Documented word means written. Written informed refusal. Mentioning the facts and take the signature of the victim and the mother of the victim. Then in addition, you should inform the police because this one will be a MLC case. What do you mean by MLC? Medico-legal case. And once the case is MLC is cut in casualty, information is automatically given to the police. So yes, option A will be the correct answer. Okay. And all this thing is according to which law? 164A CRPC, which deals with rape victim examination. Rape victim examination. So should I revise this topic for you completely? Because this is very important topic for PGI also. Let us quickly see the salient points. Suppose a female patient has come to police station. Okay. Now this police will lodge the FIR under 376 IPC. Punishment for rape offense to be given to the accused. This is the scenario. Now this policeman will take this victim to nearest hospital for medical examination. And medical examination will be done according to 164A CRPC. So one very important question from this side is, which is that rank of police who will do all this? Minimum rank for rape investigation. Minimum rank for sexual intercourse is sub-inspector. So SI for SI. SI is sexual intercourse, SI is sub-inspector. Minimum rank is SI. This is the first question. Now once this SI brings the victim to the hospital, doctor will follow the guidelines of 164A CRPC. First thing which is done is we take the history of the case. Always remember, adequate history is must. In the history, we will ask time of incident, date of incident, everything about clothing, whether you are wearing the same clothing as during the time of sexual assault, because this is very important. It will give a very good evidence, because over the cloth, semen samples can be there of the accused. So all this you will note down in the history. After this, we start with general examination first. In general examination, what you will look for? You will look for other bodily injuries. You will document the injuries. Then you will look for bite marks, if bite marks are present over breast area or not, or genital area or not. These are very important injuries present in rape cases or sexual assault cases. Then after doing general examination, you will come to genital examination. And before genital examination, you should remember, we have a safe kit available in gynae department and forensic department. Now they can ask you the full form of this kit, because this is available since 2014. So the full form is Sexual Assault Forensic Evidence Kit. Now what all things are present in this kit? This kit has many things, like a big cloth, big white cloth will be there. Then a pair of new cloths will be there, pair of new clothes. Then it will consist of swab sticks. It will consist of scissor and a comb and many other things, slides also. So what is the purpose of this big white cloth? She won't be allowed to consent, then how can she? See, she is not allowing means her mother is also not allowing, no? If the minor is not allowing, the mother is also not allowing. They both are working together. Because suppose the accused might be the father himself. They are saying that neighbor has done the offense, but the accused might be the father himself. Okay. So what is the purpose of this safe kit is, we will tell the victim, please stand over this big white cloth and do like this. Okay. Thoda sa, give your clothing a jerk, so that any suppose pubic hair of the accused is present in the cloth, it will come over the white cloth. Then if the same clothing is she is wearing at the time of sexual assault, the same clothing is there, we will tell her to undress and we will give her a new pair of clothes. Then with the help of swab sticks, we will take swabs from the genital area. With the help of scissors, we will cut the female pubic hairs to be kept as control. And with the help of comb, we will comb the pubic hairs. So that if there is any male pubic hair entangled with the female pubic hairs, it can be preserved as a very good evidence. So all these things are there in the safe kit. Remember the full form. Now while doing genital examination, we look at the vaginal orifice, and inside is your hymenal orifice, and this is your hymen. A mucosal fold present at vaginal introitus. Okay, this is your vaginal opening, this is hymenal opening. Now suppose during examination as a doctor, you got some fresh red color tears extending to the margins of vaginal opening, tears of hymen between 5 to 7 o'clock position. Yes, these tears are due to sexual intercourse mainly. And which aspect of vagina is most commonly involved? Posterolateral aspect, because posterolaterally vagina has got weaker supporting structures. So posterolateral aspect is most commonly involved. Then in your All India they have asked tears between 11 to 1 o'clock position, what is the cause? 11 to 1 or 10 to 1, you can take any time. Just remember the upper part of the clock. So what should be your answer? Here the tears are mainly due to foreign body, like fingers, like any object. Okay. these are some important areas which should always be remembered while examining a rape victim. And if the victim is not consenting, you have to take a written informed refusal. So the option A is the correct answer. 2, 3, 5 are true. Okay. Let us move on to next question. This one was another very good question, and I discussed this snake bite management in one of the special classes also, about 15 to 20 days back. And the same thing was told in the special class, that neostigmine and atropine never to be given in crab bite. So this is the clear-cut false statement. Neostigmine and atropine should not be given in crab bite. Why? Let us see the reason. If this is, suppose, your neuromuscular junction, okay, I could not get a clear-cut figure, so I made it by my hands. This is the image of your neuromuscular junction. This one will be the presynaptic area. Okay, from the presynaptic area through the vesicles, acetylcholine is released in the synaptic area, and then this acetylcholine acts over their receptors in the postsynaptic area. This is the postsynaptic junction. Now this crack venom acts on presynaptic area. It is going to inhibit the release of acetylcholine itself. So will there be any benefit of neostigmine? Answer is no, because what is the purpose of neostigmine? This neostigmine is an inhibitor of your acetylcholinesterase enzyme, a reversible inhibitor. So that's why it will not be given in crab bite, but yes, it will be beneficial in cobra bite or your myasthenia gravis. Myasthenia gravis is also a postsynaptic neuromuscular disorder. So always remember these three differentials of presynaptic disorders at neuromuscular junction: crack venom, Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome, and botulinum toxin. They act presynaptically, while your cobra venom and myasthenia gravis, they are postsynaptic disorders. Okay, that's why. What is the treatment for Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome? Something else. What is the name of that drug? Treatment of choice for Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome: 3,4-DAP, diaminopyridine. Okay, which is a potassium inhibitor. So 3,4-diaminopyridine is given because the defect is presynaptic. So keep this thing in mind. Okay. And you all must be knowing acetylcholinesterase has got two types of inhibitors. Reversible ones are medically used. Irreversible ones are your pesticides, OPC group of drugs, or carbamate group of drugs. Reversible ones are your physostigmine, neostigmine, pyridostigmine, like that. Yes, neostigmine and atropine are not used. So this is a false statement. The question was, which is a false statement? So this is a false statement. Atropine will also act on receptor level, no? Atropine will also act on receptor level. So why to give atropine also? Because the disorder is acting on your presynaptic area. The crack venom is acting on presynaptic area. Why to give atropine and neostigmine then? Okay. So this was our second question. Correct answer I have told you already. See, it is used as a protocol for occult bites. Like the patient is unaware of the bites, then we can give. But if the bite is a confirmed crack bite, like mentioned in the option, atropine and neostigmine are contraindicated. But it can be given for occult bites, where the patient is not able to tell the species of the snake, or he is unaware of the bites. Okay. Crath and cobra both are neurotoxic. Crath acts on presynaptic area, cobra acts on postsynaptic area. That's the simple difference. And because neostigmine acts on this enzyme which is present in synaptic area, so it will be beneficial for any postsynaptic disorders. LEMS is Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome, which is a presynaptic disorder. Let us continue with other questions. And this one was one of the options, humped nose viper. And I have shown you this image in snake bite special class. So this is your humped nose. It is a type of pit viper. It has got a pit. This is the pit, which is a heat sensing organ present between nostrils and eye of the snake. So this is a heat sensing organ. These pit vipers, they sense warm blooded prey like humans. They can easily sense and they can bite the humans because of the pits. But in India, the polyvalent anti-snake venom is effective against krat, cobra, Russell's viper, and saw-scaled viper. And these are pitless vipers. These are not pit vipers. These are pitless vipers. So this was also one of the options. This was one of the options. No, humped pit viper is not included. Yes, this is a true statement. This is also option A is also true statement. This is also a true statement. Neostigmine and ventilatory support should be given for occult bites. But if they say that for crab bite, neostigmine and atropine is given, this is a totally false statement. I hope it is okay now. Let me make it full screen. So let us move on to next question. This was another very good question. Minimum punishment for death of a patient by spurious drug. Always remember one simple line. Death of a person or killing of a person, if I say killing of a person by any means is murder unless proved otherwise. And what is the punishment for murder? Life imprisonment or death sentence under 302 IPC. So yes, the answer will be life imprisonment. But yes, if they have asked about spurious drugs, this term is mentioned in Drug and Cosmetic Act. We have an act called Drug and Cosmetic Act. And recently it has been amended in 2005. Okay. This spurious drug is mentioned in your Drug and Cosmetic Act like this in one of the sections of the act. A drug which is manufactured under a name which belongs to other drug, and many things are there. Similarly, they have defined adulterated drugs also. You can go through this PDF later on. Okay, I'm not going into details of these. But the difference is adulterated means any filthy, putrid or decomposed substance or poisonous substance. Spurious means manipulating the manufacturing company name itself to sell some other product. So punishment is life imprisonment minimum. Along with this, 10 lakh fine is given. 10 lakh fine provision is there along with life imprisonment. So keep these two things in mind, because if the same question comes in PGI, they will give you life imprisonment, 10 lakh fine also. So this one is also correct. So I hope it is clear. Let us move on to next question. There are many questions till now. We have done only 3 questions. This one was the googly question. It was googly for me too. But this question could be solved by ruling out the options. I also solved it by ruling out the options. Oh, this is not opium. This is not Dhatura. This is not Abrus. Yes, this has to be this atypical thing. Tropicana black canna. Okay. Okay. I will note it down. Just a minute. Black. That's why they must have given black something to mark that option. But usually when the option is like, yes, this should be the answer is something else for atypical questions. Black cannabis. The option was black cannabis, black tropicana. Okay. So I will change it. So these are your Nigella sativus seeds. So how can you solve this question? Even if you don't have an idea about Nigella sativus, you have idea about Dhatura, you have idea about Abrus precatorius, you can solve the question. Tropical black cannabis. I have noted it. I mean, I will change it after the session. See, this is your poppy capsule from which opium is obtained. and opium is something like this black tar-like substance. Now, after we extract opium from poppy capsule, unripe poppy capsule, inside these poppy capsule, these seeds are present, and in many households, these are used as cooking oil. The seeds are crushed, and the oil is used. Khaskhas oil is used as cooking medium. So these seeds are totally different. Then these are your dhatura seeds. They are kidney shaped. They will be shaped like kidney. See, these are dry dhatura seeds. Some students marked dhatura, but dhatura has to be kidney shaped. Dhatura cannot be like this, biconvex. Dhatura has to be kidney shaped. So this is your dhatura seed. Then another one was how to. This question is also very important. Dhatura seeds resemble which other seeds? This lower image is of your capsicum annum, or we can say chili seeds. Whose embryo is curved inwards, dhatura or chili? Whose embryo is curved inwards on cut section? Good afternoon to all of you. We have started with the session. Whatever you have missed, recordings will be available after the end of the session. Don't worry. So C alphabet can be made as number 6. So whose embryo will be curved inwards? Yes, chili. It cannot be dhatura. Dhatura cannot be made number 6 by any means. So dhatura embryo is curved outwards. Chili is curved inwards. And you all must be knowing the Abrus precatorius seeds and Semicarpus anacardium. So you can easily rule out the options. So there are many ways to solve a question. It's not that everything should be present in our brain because it has a limited capacity. We have to segregate things and then only we can cover all 19 subjects. But yes, there are hints to solve a question. What are the common names of Abrus precatorius? Ratti. Always remember Gunchi and Jequirity. What is the active principle of Abrus precatorius? Abrin. Active principle of Semicarpus anacardium, recent JIPMER question. Semicarpol and Vilavanol. Semicarpol and Vilavanol. These are the active principles of your marking line. Okay, and these are very important for your PGI, upcoming PGI exams. All these seeds. That's why I'm showing you the images of all the important seeds. Okay, this one particularly, these two seeds. These are very important for your PGI exams. And this is a complete list of all the important poisons. Dhatura seed, then your chili seed. This one is castor seed. Castor. Okay, it is written here. This one is croton. How to differentiate? This one is shiny and croton is dull. Okay, and these are Nux vomica seeds. Nux vomica is, total name is Strychnus nux vomica. And this is a spinal poison. And the name is Strychnus. So it has got a concavo-convex appearance. The seeds are concavo-convex. Just like your SDH on CT scan. SDH on CT is concavo-convex. So S for SDH, S for strychnine. Both are concavo-convex. SDH on CT and seeds of strychnine. That way you can remember. Okay, so this is a complete wrap up of all the important seeds for your upcoming exams. Just a minute. Okay, this one was your next question. Somehow that slide has come at wrong place. This one was one of the magical questions. Till now the status is not clear so as to what the actual fracture lines were. But I will show you all the possible skull fracture images. Okay, so that if the question comes, you will be able to mark it. Yes, many students have said that the fracture lines were like this. Number 1 image. So if this is the fracture image, answer will be your linear fissure. A fracture line present in any part of the skull bone. These are linear fissured fracture. But when these fracture lines are communicating with each other and multiple fragments have been created. This is called comminuted fracture. So now your best answer will be comminuted if you have got this image. So this is clear. Comminuted will be like second image. Linear fissured will be like first image. Let us see all other fractures. I think most likely the image which came in your exam was something like this. Skull bone with fractures line like this. 1, 2, and 3. As something like this. 3 fracture lines were there. More like, yes, more like 1. So the answer goes with linear fissure. And it will become more clear when I will show you some images. Like if I show you this image, what should be your answer? These are your fracture lines. Yes, this is again, no, this is not comminuted. The fractures have not displaced. In comminuted, the fracture should have displaced the fracture fragments. Here the fracture fragments have not displaced themselves. So this is again linear fissure. Then this one is, see, the displacement of fractured fragments have occurred from their anatomical place. This one is comminuted fracture. Okay. What is this fracture? Answer. This one. If brain was out, then it has to be comminuted. That is what I am saying. If brain was out in your image, then it has to be comminuted. This one is diastatic fracture, because the fracture lines are present along coronal sutures, your skull sutures, also called as diastatic or sutural fracture. But the moment this fracture is suppose over here, this again becomes linear fissure. Yes, I know, Ayushi, it was a blurred picture. That's why you are confused. Otherwise, fracture images are very easy to crack. That's why I brought all the images. Now you will have a clear picture so as to what the image was. Let us see all the images. Now, what is this fracture? Which type of a skull fracture is this? Yes, very good, Narayan, very good. Depressed skull fracture. See the fractured fragments, they have depressed inside the brain matter. So this one is depressed fracture image, also called as signature fracture. Because with the help of the size of the fracture, we can correlate the weapon of offense. That's why it is called signature fracture. Now the fracture lines are over here. What is this fracture? Yes, this one is your ring fracture. Some students are, because of that tension of corona and everything, some students marked the image of your AIIMS exam as ring fracture. Ring has to be at the base of the skull, always remember. Fracture around foramen magnum. This is your foramen magnum. And most likely ring fractures are associated with which cases? Fall from height cases. Another AIIMS question. Okay, most likely associated with fall from height cases because of transmitted force impact injuries. Okay, now identify this injury over the skull bone. What is this? Anyone? Yes, motorcyclist, I will come after this image. I will tell you about motorcyclist also. Now, what is this fracture? What is this present over a skull bone? They can ask you this also. Anyone try? I will say this, these are your burr holes. These have been surgically created. And the skull bone, a part of the skull bone has been removed. So when do you do such a thing? This is how craniotomy wound looks like. Craniotomy done by neurosurgeons who remove the intracranial hemorrhages blood collection. They make burr holes in your skull bone and they remove away the SDH. So this is a very good image of your craniotomy. I thought of sharing it because now they have started asking practical based questions. So they can show you this image also. So the moment you see holes like this at the edges, Wound is reflecting, yes, craniotomy has been done by a neurosurgeon. And then the person died and the body was brought for autopsy. So we will get this picture. So the holes will be over your scalp area also. Okay. From the scalp area, drills are made and the clotted blood is removed from the brain. Okay. Now coming to hinge fracture, always remember, if this is the skull bone and we are talking of base of the skull bone, base is something like this. In the center is foramen magnum. Now, if the fracture line is like this, dividing your base into two equal halves, making one half as anterior and second posterior. And you can very well see these are equally divided. Equal division of base of the skull is type 1 hinge. Type 1 hinge, also called as motorcyclist fracture. Now, what is type 2 and type 3? Type 2 is like this, dividing your base of the skull obliquely. This is type 2 hinge fracture. And type 3 is like this, dividing your base into two halves, but unequal halves, smaller anterior half and bigger posterior half. This is type 3 hinge fracture. So remember the three types of fractures of the base of the skull. And another one is ring fracture, fracture around foramen magnum. These are the fractures at base of the skull. Okay. Now at a skull base, we have one suture also, basi-occiput and basi-sphenoid. Basi-occiput and basi-sphenoid. What is their age of fusion? What is their age of ossification? 18 to 22. Question of JIPMER exams. Basi-occiput and basi-sphenoid sutures, they ossify between 18 to 22 weeks. So when you go to at base of the skull and study your different fossas, remember, revise these areas also. Okay, what is the query? Posterior is if posterior is small, we cannot name it as such as hinge fracture. Okay, we will just mention that fracture is present over this area. But these are the named fractures of different types of hinge. Then next question. This one was again a controversial question. Identify the injury. Some are saying that the injury was having clean cut images like this, clean cut edges, and some have said that edges were irregular. So this top image is showing you clean cut wound. So this is a very good image of your incised wound. This bottom image is showing me incised looking lacerated wound. Okay, and what are the areas where incised looking lacerated wound occurs? Scalp and shin, because the bone is just beneath your skin layer. Okay, so if the image was how was the image, number 1 or number 2? More close to which image, number 1 or number 2? Number 2, I think. There was one option as chop wound. See, chop wounds, I will show you how a chop wound will look like. Chop wound will have a very large amount of breadth. Chop wounds are wounds with large breadth between the two edges. Okay, so more like 2, so the answer becomes incised looking lacerated wound because the area is also scalp. Okay. Now, this image, incised wound or lacerated wound? Yes, hand image I will show you. I will show you hand image also. This image is a very good image of your lacerated wound. And here the edges have separated also. And you can see the underlying skull bone with all the blood present over here. What is this image showing us? Again, a very good image of incised looking lacerated bone, ILW. Incised looking lacerated bone. So So what were the options present in this scalp injury? What were the options present in this scalp injury? Inverted V-shaped wound, okay, over a scalp. And what were the options? Incised wound, lacerated wound, abrasion, contusion, something like that. Okay, chop wound was one of the option. Okay, I will mention, label it. I will correct it. Okay, after the end of the class, and I will give you the corrected version of PDF in my Telegram group. Incised, lacerated, chop. Okay. This one was your hand image, and here the options were same or different. First, tell me the options. This is the information which I have gathered till now, but it can be corrected with your help. Previous question options were in this hand image. Okay, 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 okay. Got it, got it, got it. Laceration, okay. Okay, leave aside everything. Suppose I have given you this image and I'm asking you, what is this injury? And these are your four options. Leave your aims question. I will correct it. I got your message that the options I have intermingled. So if I show you this image and I give you these four options, what will be your best answer? What should be the best answer? Yes, this is image of your incised wound, not lacerated wound. Why? See, if I take a knife, suppose this is a knife, okay, and someone is attacking me and I have defended like this, then all my proximal phalanges will get the injury due to this sharp edge of the knife. But if I use, suppose this is a stick, this is an iron rod, and if I hit someone over here, will I just get a lacerated wound? The hand will get fractured. There will be associated injuries also. It is not possible that you get small lacerations with a blunt weapon, but it is very likely that if I use a sharp weapon, I will get injuries like this. Leave aside the margins. I am talking of the normal thing. If I use a knife, more chances that I will get injuries over all four proximal phalanges, which was the image in your AIMS exam. Okay, very true. But if you use a rod, can you get a small lacerations and the rest of the hand is normal? It is very unlikely. So based on the location of the injuries and the orientation, the injury goes towards incised wound. Okay. So in your AIMS image, the injuries were over these areas, with no mentioning of any fracture or anything in the image. So the injury should be, because here also see, the image is totally unclear whether the margins are clean cut or irregular. But how can you tell that it is an incised wound? Based on the orientation of the wound. A knife has been used multiple times. One wound was over knuckles with strand of tissue in between. See, I have told you the mechanism. The mechanism most likely goes with incised wounds. It is unlikely to be a lacerated wound. And usually these wounds are defense wounds. And if a person is attacking with a knife, you will do like this. But if a person is attacking with a iron rod, you will do like this. The injuries are more over this area. So this is how things change. But keep this thing in mind. If the orientation of the injuries is similar on all phalanges, the chances of weapon to be a knife increases. And how do you differentiate between incised wound and lacerated wound? Let us see. A incised wound will have clean cut edges A lacerated wound will have irregular edges. In an incised wound, along with clean cut edges, there will be no tissue connections. Just a minute. There will be no tissue connections. But in a lacerated wound, there are tissue bridges or tissue connections. Yes, that's what I am saying, Shreya. Margins were not clear. They are not clear in this image also, which I am showing you. But how to make out whether the injury is an incised wound or lacerated wound? Based on the orientation of the images. Because it is very difficult to make out the edges in a small wound. It is very difficult. But if you keep this logical thing in mind, you will mark your further answers correctly. So tissue bridges are present in lacerated wound, but they are totally absent in an incised wound. Okay. If the margins were totally irregular with tissue bridges, then your answer will be LW. There is no question in that. But the image is not clear till now. Exact image even I have not got. This is one of the autopsy images which I have got where the person was attacked multiple times with a knife. And that's why I have brought this image, because this is how the incised wound looks like. Now, if you closely watch the image, see over this area, you can see the margins appear to be irregular. Why? Because there are skin folds over this area. If you do like this, there are skin folds over this area, so they appear to be irregular. Yes, the better answer will be lacerated looking incised wound. Lacerated looking incised wound, because from a distance they are giving the appearance of a laceration, but if you watch the edges closely with a hand lens, you will make out that the injuries are clean cut. So if this was okay, this was in the option Lisa Pandeji. Yeah, what is your name? Lisa. Okay. Lacerated looking incised wound will be your best answer. If this was in the option, I will note it down and I will rectify my PPT. Let us come to next question. This one was another simple question. And why you made it, many students made it wrong, I don't know. A flame burn case comes to casualty with burns involving head, face, neck, both arms, and whole anterior chest. Calculate the burn area. See, if I draw your body image, this is the front of the body, and let me draw the back of the body also. This is the back part of the body. Now you all must be knowing that this one is given 9 head and neck in total, then front of chest 9, front of abdomen 9, upper limbs 9 in total, lower limbs 18 in total. This one is simple thing. Then for back, 9 for upper back and 9 for lower back. Total 99, and 1% is for genitals. 1% is for genital, that makes it 100% body surface area. Now you should also remember that this 9 is further divided like this in both upper and lower limbs. The 9 is further divided like 5, 3, 1. 5 for arms, 3 for forearms, 1 for hands. And same for lower limbs. 5 for thighs, 3 for legs, 1 for foot. And in legs, the division will be 5, 3, 1 for front and 5, 3, 1 for back of leg. Because in total lower limbs have 18%. So now what should be your answer? Burns are involving arms. It's not written upper limbs. Upper limbs was not in the question. Had it been upper limb, you will give 9%. Front of chest bilaterally. Yes, front of chest bilaterally is 9%. Correct. So front of chest 9%. Arms, both arms 5 and 5 makes it 10. Head, face and neck 9. So what should be your best answer? Front and back of chest. Back of chest was also mentioned. If back of chest was mentioned, then add another 9. Then your answer will be 36. But if it is only anterior chest, then only 9%. So if back of chest is not there, then your answer will be 27 only. Only front of chest, no? Okay. This is what many students have told me in Telegram group also. That only anterior chest bilaterally was written. Arms made it confusing, but don't remain confused. This is a simple division which I teach in all my classes. Everywhere for last 5 years I have been teaching this. And they finally asked this question, and this was also asked in AIMS exam, where they asked about buttocks region. Burns are involving right buttocks. Now how much percentage you will give to each buttocks? How much percentage will be given to each buttock? Each buttock. I am asking about each buttock. 2.5. So always remember, let me make a new image. If this is your back part of the body, and this is your buttocks area. So in back part of the body, 9 is given for upper back, 9 for lower back. Now this 9 is further divided into 4 for back and 5 for both buttocks. And that makes it 2.5 for each buttock. So remember this also. Got it? These are the further subdivisions of your 9. Next question. So what should be the answer? Yes, option B is the correct answer. So nothing to describe in this. This must be a case of delirium tremens. But overall, if they ask you what is the treatment of choice for delirium tremens and the person has arrived in a conscious stage, instead of semi-conscious, I give here person is conscious. Now what will be your best answer? The person has arrived in a delirious and conscious state. Now what will be your best answer? Now your best answer will be oral chlordiazepoxide. Always remember this. If the person is conscious, we give a oral benzodiazepine. If the person is unconscious, we give a IV drug through IV route for quicker effect. Why benzodiazepines are given in alcoholic withdrawal? Because what happens in alcoholic withdrawal is decreased levels of GABA activity and increased activity of NMDA receptors. This is what happens in alcohol abstinence. And normally what happens in alcoholic intoxication? In alcoholic intoxication, GABA activity is increased and NMDA activity is decreased. NMDA are activator receptors of your glutamate, N-methyl D-aspartate receptors. And GABA is gamma aminobutyric acid inhibitory neurotransmitter. So this is the effect in alcoholic intoxication. That's why alcohol is a CNS depressant, because it increases GABA activity. You get anti-anxiety effect, muscle relaxant effect. But sudden alcohol withdrawal means alcohol abstinence. Now your GABA activity goes on decreasing and NMDA goes on increasing. So to counteract this, we give benzodiazepines. Okay, Deepak, tactile hallucination was also given. I will note it down. Just a minute. That will make the question to be accurate. Thank you. Thank you. Haloperidol was in one of the options, I think, no? Instead of thiamine. Okay. Haloperidol. Bugs crawling sensation. Yes, that occurs as a form of tactile hallucination. Okay, this was also given. Seeing snakes on floor. Seeing snakes on floor. Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, everyone. We will get the exact question now. Let us move on to now to the two questions of your negligence topic. Very good questions. So put in your answers for this question. Okay, Akhilesh, noted, noted. I will reframe the question. I will reframe the questions and then I will share the updated PDF with you in Telegram group. The consent has not been taken. The consent has not been taken. So how can you take a consent of extended consent? How can you take extended consent now? Obscure diagnosis was given. Okay, I am noting it down. Obscure diagnosis. So give your inputs also regarding question or options if there was some change. So your best answer to this question will be A option. Let me tell the answer directly. What is doctrine of anticipation? It is nothing but medical malaccurrence itself. So for medical malaccurrence, a doctor is not responsible. Doctrine of unanticipated consent. Okay, I will note it down. Anticipated word is there. This is not available anywhere in literature. Unanticipated consent. I will reframe this question again. But what is doctrine of extended consent? See, suppose a female patient has come for operation, any surgical operation. The gynae started the operation. Okay. Now, during operation, this gynae saw some abnormal things in her body and she wanted. So before doing the operation, the gynae has taken an informed consent. Okay. From this female. Informed consent was taken from this female. Now, during operation, if this gynae sees some abnormal things and she goes on removing the organ without any consent, will this gynae be held responsible? Yes or no? Leading question. During operation, she finds something abnormal. Yes, now the doctor will be held responsible if you remove any body part or anything without consent. This is called doctrine of extended consent. What is doctrine of extended consent? Extra consent for any extra surgical procedure. This is applicable when prior informed consent taken and you need to do something extra. Got it? Yes, they can take consent from family members also. That will also be valid. So substitute consent can be a type of doctrine of extended consent because the patient is on operation table. She cannot give her consent. So obviously relatives will be giving the consent. This is while operation is underway. So I hope this word is clear, extended consent. Doctrine of anticipation simply means the doctor anticipated that there must be many things. And during operation, while he was going with a life-saving procedure, life-saving surgery, the doctor is itself not responsible for that you have done this surgery without consent because 92 IPC is there to protect the doctor. In emergency situation involving life-saving procedures, consent issue does not arise according to 92 IPC. So the doctor is, but they did not give this as the option because this would have been a simple question. So they gave you this term, doctrine of anticipation, which is similar to medical malpractice. This one is just framed like that. It is not available in literature as such, conjugated consent. But yes, you should know what is RIL. Now RIL is res ipsa loquitur. You all must be knowing this. Suppose a doctor has done some obvious faults. This is a legal term. obvious faults by doctor, like surgery on wrong limb. I will tell you something extra in this, okay, which you all must not be knowing. Suppose a doctor has given prescription of overdose of a drug. So everything is there to prove the negligence of the doctor. And this doctrine is applicable both for mild injury cases, means civil negligence, and serious injury cases or gross injury cases like criminal negligence. So it is applicable for both civil and criminal negligence. Now, the cases will go like this. The patient has filed a complaint against the doctor. So if my question is, burden of proof in RIL cases lies on whom? And I give you options as patient, doctor. What to choose? Burden of proof in RIL cases lies on whom? And this can be asked in your PGI. So burden of proof lies on the doctor. Patient does not need to prove anything. Patient need not prove anything. Everything is hence proof. Everything is hence proof. The facts and things are speaking for themselves. But now this doctor has to prove his innocence. So the burden of proof shifts on the doctor and not the patient. Okay, keep this simple thing in mind. I hope it is clear, because the charge is on doctor and patient has got everything clear cut. Things or facts are going with the patient. So he has not to prove the guilt of the doctor. Now the doctor has to prove his innocence. This is RIL. If the patient dies after being given penicillin, does it? No, no. Again, it will come under medical malaccurrence, because penicillin is known to cause hypersensitivity reaction. See, if you have taken informed consent, let me take a fresh slide. If informed consent taken before any procedure, means you have informed the patient about pros and cons of every procedure or medical or surgical procedure, then the doctor is not responsible for side effects. Okay, always keep this thing in mind. Doctor is never responsible. Good afternoon, good afternoon, Guruji. Okay, चलो next question देख लेते हैं. Let us see the last question. This was the 11th question which came in your exam. Now what should be the answer to this? And this one was also a very good question. Those who have joined late, recordings will be available after end of the session. Don't worry. Yes, this was another question with same answer, but the synonym was given in the previous question. So here also the answer is medical malaccurrence. Now see, hysterectomy was done after informed consent for uterine fibroids, and ureteric injury is a known complication, intraoperative complication of hysterectomy. So the doctor will not be responsible under medical malaccurrence. What are the complications of hysterectomy? Intraoperative complications. That slide, yes, this here. These are the intraoperative complications which are documented in Williams Gynae and your Datta Gynae. Hemorrhage, visceral injury, and anesthetic hazards are possible complications. Intestinal injury, bladder injury, ureteric injury. So if some complications occur during surgery, doctor has taken an informed consent, means he has informed the complications of the surgery. So the doctor will not be responsible for the side effects. Yes, medical malaccurrences do occur, also called as doctrine of anticipation. Now, what is novus actus interveniens? Coming to all the options. Novus actus interveniens says act of God. So unrelated action, if it intervenes and causes a break in chain of causation. In chain of causation. So what are the 4 D's of negligence? Duty, dereliction of duty, and this dereliction was a direct cause for damage. Now, if this direct cause is somehow changed and damage is not due to negligence, it is due to some unrelated action, will the doctor be held responsible? Answer is no. Let me give you a simple example for this. Suppose a cardiac patient had a MI attack. His wife called to the regular cardiologist. Please tell some emergency medicines. My husband is having pain. If he goes away, who will do the household work? So the cardiologist was very busy. He did not attend the call seriously. The wife again called. The wife again called. Sir, please save my husband. Who will do the household work in this corona crisis? So now the doctor got alerted. Okay, I should really send an ambulance to the wife's home, and then please bring your husband to the hospital. The hospital and house were closed. Ambulance arrived from the hospital within 2 or 3 minutes. Husband and wife going happily. The wife was very happy. Now my husband will be okay, and now I will get the assistance in household work. the, the husband dies due to a road traffic accident of the ambulance, and the body was brought to me for autopsy. At autopsy, I got subdural hemorrhage. The person was a known cardiac patient. He had MI attack. But what is going to be the cause of death? An unrelated action. Now, will the doctor be held responsible for this SDH? Answer is no. Which doctrine is applicable? Novus actus intervenes. I hope it is clear. Nowadays, every married person is doing BJP, Bartan Jhadu Pocha, because maids are not coming in households. RAL we have already discussed. Okay, remember one more thing regarding the 4 Ds of a negligence. Also remember your 4 Ds of RBSK. This one was also asked in AIMS exam. Rashtriya Bal Suraksha Karyakram. What are the 4 Ds of RBSK? Go on telling. What are the 4 Ds? Defects, congenital defects, deficiencies, then third and fourth, because this one will be asked in your PGI also. Be very sure. Any disease or disability, disease and disability. Okay. These are the 4 Ds. So you should go through the chart of RBSK. I have shared the chart in my Telegram group. Go through it. The correct answer to your AIMS exam was congenital glaucoma. Because congenital cataract and congenital deafness is covered, but glaucoma is not covered under RBSK program. And there are some deficiencies like fat soluble vitamins are covered, zinc is covered, deficiency of vitamin A, vitamin D, zinc, severe anemia, and iodine deficiencies are covered. So go through this chart, very important chart. I have shared the chart in the Telegram group. And those who are not in my Telegram group, you can join the Telegram group in the name of FMT Concepts. The link is, you can directly join the group. It's open for everyone. For all your FM queries, you can join this group. So I will make the necessary changes as suggested by you all. Thank you very much. And all the best to all the students who are going to give their PGI tomorrow. Maintain the calmness, maintain your cool head, maintain the head to be cool. You will do good. Spurious drug I have mentioned earlier. Okay, just a minute. This is the list of spurious. These are the things which come under spurious drugs. When do you say a drug to be spurious? And one more thing, install that Arogya Setu app in your mobile. Otherwise, you will not be able to enter the center of PGI. They have mentioned it clearly. Stupefying drug is a drug which makes a person unconscious for a while, like your dhatura. Dhatura is a stupefying agent. Stupefying dose of dhatura is about 50 to 60 seeds. Fatal dose is 100 to 120 seeds. So stupefying means the person becomes unconscious. That's why dhatura seed is crushed and mixed with the drink to rob people. Okay. So spurious drug, adulterated drug is different thing, and stupefying is something else. Okay, then bye bye. See you all later. All the best for your PGI. Rock your exams, and we will discuss PGI questions also. And those who want to join the Plus course, they can use this referral code of mine. Yes, share the questions of PGI on Telegram group. I will form the question and I will keep one session for PGI also. And same for JIPMER also. Okay, then bye-bye. Link of Telegram. See, there is no link. Just type this name in Telegram and you will be able to join directly. The link is open for the group is open for every student. I have kept it as public group. So it is open for every student. FMT concepts. Okay, then bye-bye. See you all later. And don't read anything new for your PGI. Just revise what you have read earlier.